You know, our solar system gets visitors all the time. Things from the deep, dark space between the stars. And yeah, most of them are just chunks of rock and ice. But every once in a while, one shows up that makes us all lean in a little closer and ask some really big questions. And our latest visitor? It's the most baffling one yet.
Okay, so picture this. It's July 1st, 2025. Astronomers using the Atlas Sky Survey down in Chile spot a tiny faint speck of light. But this speck is moving at a speed that's, well, it's just hard to wrap your head around. We're talking over 130,000 miles per hour. To be moving that fast so far from the sun, you know one thing right away. This thing is not from around here.
So there was absolutely no doubt this visitor was from interstellar space. It got the official name 3I/Atlas. But that right there is where the certainty stops and the real mystery kicks in. Are we looking at a natural object that's just been wandering the galaxy? Or is it something else?
Now, this object, 3I/Atlas, it's actually not our first guest from out of town, so to speak. In fact, we've had a couple of others drop by pretty recently. And when we start to compare them, that's when we find our first real clues about what makes this new arrival so different.
So our first visitor was Oumuamua back in 2017. It was rocky and frankly just plain weird. Then came Borisov in 2019, which looked a lot more like a classic comet. And now we have 3I/Atlas. What just immediately pops off the screen here is the speed. I mean, look at that last column. Oumuamua and Borisov were moving, for sure, but Atlas, it's in a totally different league.
58 kilometers per second. And get this, that's its speed before it even got close enough for our sun's gravity to give it a boost. It's what astronomers call its interstellar velocity. It tells us that whatever happened in its home star system, it got kicked out with an incredible amount of energy. So the big question is, why is it moving so ridiculously fast?
So you have this object screaming through space at this unbelievable speed, and as you'd expect, astronomers all over the world are just scrambling to get a better look. And as that first wave of data started to roll in, a general agreement began to take shape.
Okay, so to understand what most scientists were thinking, we need a quick refresher on comets. The easiest way to think of a comet is as a big, dirty snowball. As it gets closer to the sun, it starts to heat up. That ice turns straight into gas, a process called outgassing, and it throws off a bunch of dust. All that gas and dust creates this fuzzy, glowing cloud around the comet's core, and that cloud is called a coma. It's the classic calling card of a comet.
And sure enough, this is exactly what the telescope started to see. 3I/Atlas had that telltale fuzzy coma. Check. It even had a little tail starting to form. Check. Later on, analysis confirmed that the coma was full of water ice and dusty grains. Double check. So based on all this, the big players, NASA, the SETI Institute, the survey team that found it, they all said, yep, it's a comet. A really, really fast one, but a natural comet. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast.
Just as everyone was kind of settling on that explanation, a really provocative counter idea started making the rounds. It was championed by a pretty famous and, controversial voice in the world of astronomy. And this is where the story gets really interesting. So Avi Loeb, an astrophysicist at Harvard, steps into the picture. Now, you might remember him. He's the guy who famously suggested our first interstellar visitor, Oumuamua, might have been alien technology. So when he looked at the data for 3I/Atlas, he didn't just see a comet. He saw a whole string of remarkable details that, to him, didn't add up, unless it was something artificial.
Let's just run through the weird list he pointed out. First, the object is so bright that if it were just a solid rock, it would have to be enormous, like 20 kilometers wide. Second, its path just so happens to be almost perfectly lined up with the plane of our own solar system. A pretty big coincidence. Third, right when it makes its closest pass to Earth, it's going to be hidden from us by the sun. Convenient, huh? Fourth, it's moving so fast we have no technology that could possibly catch up to it. And finally, it's making some suspiciously close flybys of Mars, Venus, and Jupiter. So is this all just one giant cosmic coincidence? Or does that sound more like a flight plan?
Right, so as you can probably guess, the alien probe idea made some serious waves, but the rest of the scientific community was quick to push back, basically saying that everything being labeled as anomalous actually has a perfectly good explanation under the Comet model. And this quote from Darrell Seligman, who worked on one of the first major studies of the object, really nails the mainstream view. The argument is pretty straightforward. If we have tons of observations showing it as all the classic signs of being a comet, then the simplest explanation is probably the right one. It's a comet.
Okay, so let's put these two ideas head to head. The probe hypothesis looks at that strange flat trajectory and says, that's intentional, that's clandestine. The comet explanation says, nope, it's just a coincidence. Then you have the brightness. The probe camp says it's way too bright to be a normal rock, but the comet camp says you're not seeing the rock, you're seeing the light reflecting off a huge dusty coma surrounding a much smaller rock. So it really comes down to a battle between cosmic intent and cosmic chance.
But here's the thing. Whether 3I/Atlas turns out to be a comet or some kind of covert tech, the debate itself is pointing to something much, much bigger. We are stepping into a completely new chapter of astronomy where visitors from other stars aren't some once-in-a-generation event anymore.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It says it all. For pretty much all of human history, we knew of exactly 0 objects from other stars. Then boom, we find one in 2017. Then another, just 2 years later. Now a third. You don't have to be a genius to see the pattern here. The pace is accelerating, and it's about to go into overdrive. And here's the engine that's about to kick this whole thing into high gear. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory. This thing is an absolute beast. It's a game changer. Projections are saying it could find dozens, maybe up to 50 new interstellar objects in just the next 10 years. We're about to go from a tiny trickle of these discoveries to an absolute flood.
So, okay, why does any of this matter to you and me? Well, think about it. Each one of these objects is like a free sample, a message in a bottle delivered right to our cosmic doorstep from another star system. They are time capsules carrying ancient materials that could tell us how other worlds are built. They might even carry the chemical seeds of life. And yes, as some very smart people are arguing, they just might be our single best shot at finding out if we're really alone.
So in the end, this whole debate about 3I, Atlas, it's really just the opening act. With a whole wave of these interstellar messengers headed our way, we are on the verge of discoveries that could completely rewrite what we know about the universe. The question isn't if we're going to find something that changes everything anymore. The question is, when?